Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from the StoryADay podcast. And this week, I wanted to keep talking to you about July's theme of improve. And I want to talk about today 2 stories from my week, which made me think about improving our writing practice in ways that might be a little bit surprising, but probably not if you think about it. The first thing is that one day this week, somebody was telling me about a book that sounded really interesting. Because I'm a massive nerd, it was called Envisioning Information by Edward Tufte. And so I looked in my local library system to see if they had it, because it's not something that's easily obtained anymore. It's been out of print for a while. So I ordered it through the library system, which led to me discovering that the library system purges its records from time to time. Who knew? So I've got a new library card, new number, and I went down and I got my book from the library to read. So I walked down to my local library because I'm lucky enough to be able to do that. I live in a town that's a Carnegie library, much like the one where I grew up in Scotland. But coincidences aside, I walked down and I picked up the book, and then I sat in their refurbished reading room, which has lots of nice tables and functional chairs. And I sat and I leafed through this book, which was totally outside my realm of experience and expertise. It's about how to take complex information and present it, and how that's been done throughout time. So there's stuff in there like diagrams of Japanese cities and railroad timetables from Java, the country, not the drink. And there was also information about pollution temperatures throughout the day in LA. I know this all sounds really dull, but just reading about how information has been presented in the eons before PowerPoint and Canva was absolutely fascinating. Some of these diagrams were extremely detailed, and the challenge for an expert in presenting information is to find a way to present it that isn't complicated. None of this really matters to you, except that as I was reading this completely off-topic book for me, I started coming up with story ideas about who is the kind of person to whom this makes sense. What would it be like to be that person on the cusp of the computer era, where everything was going to get simplified and turned into sound bites and snippets that are completely out of context? And so lots of ideas came up for me as I was reading that book, which had nothing to do with writing or business or any of the other things that I normally read about, or fiction. And then I walked home, and as I was walking, I just got into that nice rhythm where you're walking and your mind is just turning things over. And it was so refreshing to take time away from my desk and let my brain just get excited about stuff. And I came home and I wrote about other things, not the story idea that I had, but it reminded me that this is what I do. I get inspired by things and I take ideas, and there we go. So story number 1 is essentially, if you can find the time or make the time, go to your local library and pull random books off the shelf and just look at them, and don't stick to the fiction section. Now, I quite often in my business life, I am always imploring business people to read fiction because I'm telling them that's what the truth of it is, and that's where you get inspired and have big ideas, and you can't just read other people's productivity books and expect to be more productive. But for us who read so much fiction, I'm saying go to the non-fiction section, pull some books off the shelf, pull books that are wildly out of date off the shelf and take a look at them and just read widely about ideas that don't seem to have anything to do with the project that you're working on at the moment. And I think you'll find it is a refreshing and kind of wonderful experience. And it reminds you of when you were younger and before you decided to be a writer, when reading was just a joy. And it can be that again. We just have to remind ourselves to sometimes get away from our desks, stop putting so much pressure on ourselves to produce, and read for fun. Read weird stuff. Get big ideas in your head from fields that you don't normally read in. The second story comes from my day-to-day. I sat down this morning to try and write on my current fiction project, and I'm just like, I'm in the middle. I'm in the messy middle, and you have to get to the next big scene, and the one you're working on is just grind. And this is just part of writing. If you want to craft a piece of writing, you just have to get through these uncomfortable parts sometimes. But in my head is the voice going, you're not very good at this, are you? Maybe you should just stop doing this. Maybe you're not really cut out for this writing thing. Sound familiar? If you've ever heard that voice, what I'm going to suggest is if you can do what I have been fortunate enough to do, to build is a network of supportive writers who can take you on a day like that and give you a little shake. So I went out for lunch today with my writing buddies who have been reading my work for a decade and more. And they've seen stuff that you guys have never seen because I haven't released most of it. And they've been reading along with me as I've been writing it. So if you're wondering, a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about being a courageous writer and releasing things, I've got oodles of projects on my hard drive, just like you, which I have been sitting on and not releasing because the lure of the new thing has always pulled me forward. And sometimes that new thing is story a day, and sometimes that new thing is a new story. And I haven't really got serious about releasing anything. So there's lots of stuff I've been writing. So these two ladies have been reading my writing for at least a decade and have seen multiple projects from beginning to end. So I went to lunch today and I said to them, listen, at the end of lunch before we left, I went, listen, I am having a real hard time with this current project. And I've got to the stage where I know what I want to write, can't write it. And the voices have started in my head saying I'm a terrible writer. And of course, not just being good writing friends, but having read my stuff, they were like, can't believe that you said that. I love your stuff. I love these characters. And have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And yeah, I was fishing for compliments. Absolutely, I was. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And we've been taught not to do that and not to try and get people to tell us how great we are. But we as writers are so insecure and we can see such a gap between what we're doing and what we want to be doing that it's really easy to be overcritical. And I know well enough now that the overcritical voice is not helpful. So I've cultivated these writing friendships where I can turn to people and say, okay, you know what I'm talking about. I'm in the place where I just think I should quit writing. And we need that affirmation around us sometimes. So if you don't yet have a community of people who will do that for you, find one. I built this one out of a splinter group that broke off from another group I was in. I found the people that I got along with and got the most out when we were talking about our work. And I invited them to lunch. And we started meeting over 10 years ago to share pages and write together. And now we've got a project that we're working on together. And so it takes a while, but finding the first person with whom you resonate and then finding the people that they bring into your world is something that I highly recommend. And I'm going to suggest that you hang out around StoryADay and look out for workshops that I run and critique weeks and the Superstars group opening up again, because I put together a bunch of people who are like me. They're enthusiastic about writing. They are ambitious, but ambitious all kinds of different ways and at different times. Sometimes it's ambition for getting more words on the page. Sometimes it's ambition for getting works out into the world. Sometimes it's ambition for having a rest period. So if you're looking for a community, look here, but also look around you. Look online, find people who are supportive, who bring out the best in you and have a similar level of ambition to you. Sometimes it's just so important to go back to the fundamentals. Am I a good writer? It's not really a question that you can answer. So fundamentally, having somebody around whose opinion you respect, and love as we do, family's not always the best place to find that affirmation because they love you. They're going to say, sure, do what you want. Or they're jerks and they say, what are you doing that for? Family is complicated. Finding others who don't really have a stake in the outcome for you. They're just vaguely interested in finding other good writers and having more books to read. And if you trust them and this story's not quite working, maybe it needs a bit more conflict, then you know where you are. Or if they're like, well, you've got some things to learn about writing and story structure, then they're not actually saying you're not a good writer. They're saying you've got some things to learn about writing and story structure. And they can be learned. If you love writing, if you get pleasure from it, you're going to be motivated to keep learning. And all of this stuff can be taught or learned. You read good literature, you're going to learn stuff. Take good classes from people who teach you how to analyze it. Great. If you're having trouble making stuff happen in your story, read a book about story structure or watch a YouTube video about story structure. Anytime we're stuck, it's always, I'm going to say, always because we are trying to go too far too fast, and we may need to go back to the fundamentals. So for me today, it was fundamentally, can I write fiction? And I knew I was being illogical and blinkered and unable to see the truth. So I went to people who could see the truth and I said, should I be doing this? And they've read lots of my stuff and they were like, yes, you should be doing this. And because they are writers, they are not going to roll their eyes and say, oh, for heaven's sake, stop trying to make us be nice to you. Because they know what it's like. In terms of story writing, actually, when you do get to your desk, so in this episode, I'm advocating getting away from your desk for research and just to experience the world. And I'm advocating getting away from your desk to mingle with other people who you can trust and who are in this writing life. I'm also going to say that when you get to your desk, going back to the fundamentals will improve your writing. You can't spend all your time there because you want to be creating works, stories, novels, memoirs that push you up to the edge of what you're capable of. And then you go and learn something new, or you go back to the fundamentals and say, I used to be able to do this. What's going on? Like, I used to be able to plot out a scene and make it interesting. Why isn't it working now? Maybe I need to go back to the fundamentals of, okay, I need to know what's happening in this scene. What am I trying to achieve with this woman and this guy in a supermarket? A scene that I've been stuck on for ages and I've been staring at it for so long that I can't see it anymore. So I have to step away, go back to the fundamentals and ask, what does this scene achieve in my book? What am I trying to have happen here? What comes before it? What comes after it? What are the issues for the characters? Brainstorming, instead of just storming forward, can be a really useful thing. It's something that I explored with people in the StoryADay May challenge this year. I put together a handbook which had not just the prompts and my little lesson about it, but it also had 2 very distinct sections for each day that people could choose to use or not, depending on how their day was going. So the first one was what I call warm-up exercises, where after somebody had read the prompt, I would then prompt them to think about a similar type issue that had happened to them in their lives. So last week I gave you a prompt about a character needing food. If I was doing this in the style of the handbook, I would encourage you not to just start trying to write the story and trying to figure out, I've got this character and she's hungry and what do I know about her? And okay, let's put her in a situation, let's go. You can do that, but if it's not working, if it's not flowing, don't think that stopping and doing this warm-up exercise is a waste of time. And the warm-up I would give for that one would be something like, think about a time when you were really hungry. Like, not just peckish, not just I haven't eaten for a while, but like a day when you had to go beyond your comfort level of just being hungry. Maybe you went beyond the point of hunger. Something happened, and we've all had this. Days when we just haven't been able to get food. My most recent one was on a plane. I've developed a gluten intolerance, and they swore up and down that they were going to give me a gluten-free meal, and then they didn't. And it was a 9-hour flight. And I could so easily have brought food with me if they hadn't sworn that I was on the list. So there's all kinds of stuff that happens when I was in that state. So for this warm-up, I'd probably write about that plane flight, because I would remember that being hungry is more than rumbling in your stomach. It's the feeling of your blood sugar dropping, the shakiness, the lack of ability to cope with the tiniest adversity because you don't have energy resources. And in my case, I was tired as well, and I was cold, and you can imagine there were adversities that I was just not coping with because I hadn't eaten for about 10 hours, and I was also angry about it because it was an avoidable situation. If I was doing this warm-up exercise, I would remember all of that stuff before I started writing the story, and I would look at not just the physical response to a lack of food, but also all the other things, like the fact that I had lowered resilience and the fact that I was angry about the injustice of this situation. I know, super well problem, but I was angry about being treated the way I'd been treated. because I was in a completely avoidable situation if someone had just been honest with me. But they didn't want to look bad, so they were covering their ass or whatever. So there's a lot more going on in a moment when someone is suffering from being hungry and needing food, and simply their stomach rumbling. And that warm-up exercise would have helped me to find a way into the story or find a way to make it a little bit original in its execution, because we don't ever really need to worry about original ideas. It's all about the execution. So the other thing that I would offer people during StoryADay May, and which you can still get by ordering the StoryADay Challenge Handbook, where all of the prompts and these warm-up and brainstorming exercises are included with videos of me talking you through them. The other thing I offered was warm-up exercise. So once I had given people, and I purposely said, set a timer for 5 minutes while you journal about this experience. I've probably already talked about my plane flight and being hungry for longer than 5 minutes, but I would tell people to set a timer to just write about that experience that related to that day's prompt for 5 minutes so that you didn't use up all your writing time and energy. And then once you had done that, the timer would go off and you could move on to the brainstorming exercise, which again was for 5 minutes. And I added leading questions that would help people think about this particular story. So the particular prompt last week was to think about a character who is trying to find food. If I was doing a brainstorming exercise for that, I would ask you questions like, what kind of character do you want to write about today? Do you want to write about somebody like you or not like you? Do you want to write about somebody in a contemporary situation or in a historical situation, a futuristic situation? What kind of mood do you want your story to be? And then I would say things like, okay, this character that you have, what could possibly have put them in a situation where they don't have food? Is it a comedy of errors type thing, or is this some kind of tragic, traumatic thing that's causing them to be hungry? I ask questions like that because sometimes the first thing you think of somebody being hungry, and I think that's terrible, that's tragic, something bad has happened to them. But it could just as easily be something stupid like I experienced, and it could be something that lends itself to comedy. Quite often, when I'm talking to, they will tell me that all their writings are skewing sad and tragic and traumatic, and they don't really want to do that. They're like, I don't understand why all my stories are coming out like that. And sometimes it's just because the most dramatic things we can think of are the sad ones. So these brainstorming questions that I asked in the StoryADay Challenge Handbook before each day prompt would encourage you to think about different ways to think about the prompt beyond your first thought. If my first thought was, oh, this is tragic, this person's hungry, the brainstorming questions for this one would say things like, how could this person be in this situation? Have they been in this situation before? What kind of do you want your story to have? How could you show the person being hungry without actually telling us that they're hungry? Will you include food in the story, and where will it be, and why can't your character get to it? So just setting a timer for 5 minutes and saying, answer some of these questions. Don't answer all of them. Answer whichever ones leap off the page for you and just write about those for 5 minutes. And then timer goes off. Okay, now you either start writing your story or you go about your day, you let it bubble in the back of your brain all day. You come home in the evening and you've got so much about at the end of the day. That, I think, fits into my theme today of improving your writing practice by going back to fundamentals, because so often when we sit down to write, we feel kind of panicky. Got to get new words on the page. Oh, gotta go. And stepping back and saying, you know what, 5 minutes to journal about what it really means to be hungry could be huge, could change everything, could make it easier to write, could make it more powerful. And then having 5 more minutes to brainstorm about, what do I actually want to achieve today? What do I want the reader to feel at the end of it? Why is this character? Who is this character? What will I show in the story? And just pay attention to which things sound like fun and then write them. And fun, as I've said before, is a movable feast. It's, for some people, fun is slicing people's hearts out with a sharp razor blade. And that's their idea of fun in writing. And for some people, killing everyone at the end is fun. And for some people, actually, comedy is fun, actual comedy. So for some given value of fun, what sounds like fun for you today? So I hope that's helpful. If you are stuck in your writing, what can you do to the fundamentals of your writing practice? Do you need to get up and walk about? Do you need to Build your network of friends, writing friends who can help you when you're having a day, which all of us have, where you're like, I am the worst writer in the world. I don't know what I was thinking. What on earth? And you need people around you who can say, on good days and bad, wow, this was really good. And say, don't delete that part. That part's good. And don't quit. And then sometimes when we get to our desks, charging ahead and expecting today to be as good as yesterday's fabulous writing day isn't realistic. And some days you just need to go back to the basics and say, what am I writing about? What on earth am I writing about? Let me ask some smart questions of my story and myself. And yeah, I'm not going to add 2,000 words today, but maybe I'll add 350 good ones. Anyway, hope that has been helpful. If you want to sign up for the slower paced Story a Week newsletter, where you get a little story from me about my week and what's occurring to me, or something that I've been thinking about, that will come to you along with a writing prompt every week for the next 52 weeks. You can sign up for that at storyaday.org/story-a-week. If you like the idea of having that handbook, which has 31 prompts, warm-up exercises and brainstorming exercises, all done with videos and audio and a nice portal where you can see everything, you could sign up for that at storyaday.org/challenge-handbook. So that there's different types of content for different needs, different styles of writing. If you just want something in your inbox which says, hey, every week, how you doing? Here's a story and here's a writing prompt. You should think about doing this. And it's created to build on the week before and the week before and the week before. We start by trying to get you to your desk more often. The next week we talk about the art of the story. Then we go into short story forms. So all of my work tends to be like that. We start with the fundamentals of getting to the desk, and then we explore things more deeply. As you get writing, you're going to want to improve certain things, and I try and focus on that in everything I do, in these different layers that take you through it. So that both the Story a Week newsletter, which is a nice little thing that just pops up in your inbox, and there's also an archive of everything, but it's just the written word for those of us who love the written word. And it was a pretty popular newsletter when I put it out at first. And so if you haven't been part of that yet, think about starting that from the beginning. You'll get 52 missives from me for the next year, once a week for the next year. Or if you want to go deeper and go faster, then you could have a look at the challenge handbook. Again, that is something that you can dip in and out of throughout the years. There's no need for you to do it like we did it in the challenge, one a day. There's certainly no need for that. There's no need for you to do one a week. You could browse it and dip in and out, and you'll have me chatting to you every time you open it up like this, and encouraging you to write more and think about what you're writing and push yourself to try something new today. And both of them are pretty solid programs that I've put together that people have really enjoyed. They've caused people's brains to go fizz and ooh and things like that. I'd be delighted if you take me up on the chance to get one of those and work through them and let me know how it's going. I love to hear from people about how it's going. I'm going to be making more of that handbook style content. I'm thinking some genre-based stuff. I'm thinking some other ideas, some craft stuff, of just quick bites that you can solve. I'm thinking about doing something which is a handbook that you can dip into when you're stuck on certain things. So like, I'm in the middle of a novel and I'm stuck. Help. And then you could turn to page 45 and it would say, okay, think about these things. And I'm also thinking about one which would be more story-based like that. I've got my characters into this situation and I am now completely stuck. And the handbook would have ways for you to think about that and get yourself out of being stuck on craft or plot or character issues. So if that kind of thing sounds interesting to you, let me know. I might send out some surveys to see what to talk about first. I thank you to everyone who did respond to my survey recently about what's on your mind at the moment. I got some really interesting questions and I'm working on putting together some answers for you. I'm working on some articles and they're going to pop up in the podcast soon too. Next month at StoryADay, we will be talking about the importance of celebrations and ways to celebrate yourself, other writers, and really make this writing life something that is rewarding to you and not just another thing to do on your to-do list. And another thing that you can beat yourself up for not being a Nobel Prize winner yet at. So there's lots of good stuff coming next month about how to enjoy your writing life by celebrating all your triumphs. That's it for today. Check out the links for ways to get hold of those things I've put together for you. Most of all, keep writing. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week and, of course, keep writing.